Your good friend, Dr. Gordon Gee, the president of the Ohio State University, had things to say about me. Are you a fish eater or are you a Catholic?
I am, yes.
You! This is what he said about you. Hit the remarks of the president of the Ohio State University.
Our very good partners. I'll just say that. I negotiated with them during my first term, and the fathers are holy on Sunday, and they're holy hell on the rest of the week. You just can't trust those damn Catholics on a Thursday or Friday. And I think the presidents of the institutions are very clear that their number one criteria is to make certain that we have institutions of like-minded academic integrity. So you won't see us adding
He's starting to feel it now.
Or the University of Kentucky. Well, you tell the SEC that they can learn to read and write, then they can figure out what they're doing. Yeah.
Now, Mo, that is the president of the Ohio State University. Your reaction as a fish eater?
I've heard far more offensive jokes at almost every sports stag I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah. The problem isn't the joke. The problem aren't the jokes. Look, we're the same people that buy shirts that say, muck fish again and stuff like that. That's where we are. The problem is the person telling the jokes. Because I remember when we first had the Jim Tressel press conference like 2 years ago, where the news we found out that Jim Tressel was in some hot water for lying to the NCAA, and Ohio State had this hastily called press conference where Gordon Gee decides to turn into a Catskills comic. Well, I'm just I hope the coach doesn't fire me, and I remember watching that going, do you understand the gravity of the situation here? Do you understand the seriousness? You're a very popular, very successful football coach. The face of your university, for better or for worse, he's going to get fired here.
Yeah.
And you don't seem to get that. And I thought, man, this guy, for all the good that he is kind of out of touch. Well, here back in December, at a public meeting, at something that you can request, that's recorded. He's too out of touch to understand that can be very easily made public. The problem for me aren't the jokes. The jokes, I think, are rather innocuous. You hear them at most sports stags. I've been to banquets where you hear those. Far more offensive than that. I go to church festivals all the time. And, I've heard priests get up there and they'll take slight jabs at, other denominations. And it's gentle and it's all in good humor. I just don't know if the president of a university should be doing that.
But
and even if so, do it in a setting that is not going to be made public.
And that this wasn't a sports stag in which there's like a free fire zone.
Exactly.
This was at the Ohio State University Athletic Council, which are the wise men who control athletics.
Right.
You don't do that. And about Catholics, should we be offended? What if you said about blacks, something about blacks being proliferate in bed, well-hung, and lazy? Do you think he could get away with that?
No.
How come Catholics can be regularly the butt of jokes and it's okay?
Well, you know why? Because we Catholics have great senses of humor. I mean, look, I'm Catholic, and I heard it and went, okay, I read the quotes before I heard them, and then I heard the audio. You just played it. We've all spoken publicly. You do it a lot. I've done it. And we know how it is. You tell a joke, you get a laugh. It's intoxicating. You want some more.
Want some more.
He starts feeling it there, and he turns into this Shecky Gee kind of character where he's feeling it. He gets a laugh, and then he just keeps going.
And he's a Mormon.
And
Gee is a Mormon.
I just don't know in that particular setting that what he said is appropriate.
So what happens now at this point?
He's going through, what is it, remediation? I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
According to, I guess, the head of the board of trustees.
The head of the trustees, he must be remediated. Poor attempts at humor, entirely inappropriate, and that they told members of the council he negotiated with Notre Dame, went on to say this, and he must go through a learned course of remediation to address his behavior. What the hell does that mean?
It's okay to be the funny guy at the cocktail party, but I'm not sure you can do that if you're the president of a university, and especially in public settings. Again, the contents of the joke.
How about the Little Sisters of the Poor that he attacked?
And actually had to write a check to the Little Sisters of the
November of 2010, Gee boasted that the Ohio State football schedule would not include teams on par with the Little Sisters of the Poor. They took offense at that. I didn't think the Little Sisters of the Poor had a football team.
If you're going to be the funny guy, I'm not sure you can be the university president.
And
if you're gonna be the school comedian, then you might need to be in fundraising, might need to work the cocktail party circuit, might need to work the sports stag circuit. I don't know that from a university president. And look, the role of university president, you've seen it evolve at Ohio State. He's very active in community life. He's sort of Santa Ono on steroids, who's Twitter guy, who's out at basketball games, who's hanging out with cheerleaders and doing all those. And all those things are fine.
What about the Polish Army jokes?
But you've got to be a little bit more in touch and understand that it's not going to play well when you're the head of a major American university. That just doesn't work. And
you won't see us adding Louisville or Kentucky to the Big Ten.
Look, the jokes are either lame or mildly funny. I think they're innocuous.
Isn't there an element of truth? Doesn't the Big Ten see itself as something a cut above the pedestrian Louisvilles, the UCs, the Kentuckys?
Look, for people, if you go to UK or Louisville or Notre Dame and you're pretending to be offended by that, I think you tend to ignore that those same things are said about schools like Ohio State. Those things are said. That's part of the conversation. Just not from university presidents. Those are jokes that fans tell, that coaches tell on the banquet circuit, the talk show hosts tell. But you don't hear that coming from
the president,
a university president
at a big meeting,
in a big public meeting. As you said, this isn't a banquet.
No, banquets are fine.
This isn't an award ceremony. This isn't a cocktail
I've
party.
said things at banquets I shouldn't have said that might sound bad.
This is official university business at a public institution that can become public. And I guess sometimes, as you know, Willie, you have to weigh. You speak for a living. You give opinions for a living. You have to weigh the risk-reward. If I say this, what are the possible risks? What are the possible rewards? In that particular instance, I think if you're Gordon Gee, you go, okay, if I say this, I can get some laughs, but at some point somebody might ask for this particular meeting, and I'm going to have to apologize for some, again, I think relatively innocuous jokes.
Now, let's go to page 2.
Yeah.
Your Reds and my Reds, we perceive as having a great year. They're now in 3rd place in the Central. Are you concerned about your Reds now in Pittsburgh? Well, when they play Cleveland here, I was looking at the 76 Reds.
Yeah.
Then they go up there and they play like the 81 Reds.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, the 81 Reds had the best record in baseball.
But they didn't go how about the 84 Reds?
84 Reds were awful. The most problematic to me, I don't understand Dusty Baker's logic last night where Homer Bailey, I think it was pretty evident from the 4th inning, from about midway through the 4th inning, that, okay, let's maybe have somebody up and throwing so that this game doesn't get out of hand. And Dusty's logic is, well, we have a big series this weekend, and I understand it's a divisional opponent. The Pirates are ahead of them in the standings. It is a quote-unquote big series. But I'm a fan of, and I understand, sometimes you got to lose the battle to win the war. But give yourself a chance to win that night. Dusty, to me, last night kind of let Homer Bailey pitch the team out of the game. And Scott Kazmir pitched very well last night against a guy who I would think if I'm a manager, we're in the middle innings, we can get some runs. If it's 4-1, we're within range. If it's 5-1, we're within range. Or 4-0 because the Reds didn't score first. Why let your pitcher pitch you out of a game? Tonight, Johnny Cueto is going to pitch. It's a Pirates team that's not very good offensively. They've pitched great, which we'll talk about.
1-0 against Detroit again.
Why almost intentionally lose last night so you might win tonight? I understand sometimes relievers are unavailable, but I'm not a fan of that. And then pile it on top of the fact that he clearly let Bronson Arroyo hang too long and pitch to a guy that had his number on Wednesday night. It wasn't a good 2 days in Cleveland for Dusty. Big picture with the Pirates. There's a lot of talk right now about whether they're for real or not. And they pitch. 2nd in the league in ERA, 2nd in the league in WHIP, leading all of Major League Baseball in batting average against. Their bullpen is dominant. They've won 4 games in the last 11. 1-0. Yeah. Which speaks to how well they've pitched. Also speaks to the fact that this team doesn't hit. And I can't help but think, while they've been more dominant this season on the mound, and they have been, they're striking out more guys, their bullpen has been great. Offensively, they leave a lot to be desired.
Are they going to fade like the Pirates always fade?
I don't know if they'll. I always say you are your track record until you're not, and their track record.
You are who they say you are.
Right. Do I think they fade to the extent that they did each of the last 2 years? Maybe not necessarily. I think they'll sort of hang in it and maybe even make it a quote 3-team race. But it's not about making it a race.
Can you name one Pirates baseball player other than Andrew McCutchen?
Oh, sure. Russell Martin. I mean, there's Sterling Marte. Yeah, they have
absolutely.
But they don't have anybody who's necessarily having a bad year, but they don't have anybody who's having a superlative year. Andrew McCutchen is in the top 10 among offensive players and wins above replacement, but even he's not having the season he did last year. Offensively, they're middle of the pack in most categories. at some point you're going to have to score some runs. And I think to win this division, which, look, it might require 95, 96 wins.
Yeah.
I kind of want the Pirates to be in this thing because I think Cincinnati-Pittsburgh sports history. Reds and Pirates were the two dominant National League teams in the 70s.
I don't like
be kind of cool.
I don't like
and we don't like the Cardinals.
I don't like St.
I just don't know that they hit enough, not to stay in it, but I don't think they hit enough to win.
We'll see what happens, Mo. Lastly, I was watching the NBA. I only watched the NBA and the hockey in the playoffs.
Right.
What I saw from LeBron in the third quarter was unbelievable.
Last night he outscores the Indiana Pacers.
By himself.
By himself in the third quarter. 7 of 10 from the field, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 0 turnovers. Last night was, for me, as much a Michael Jordan night. I know people lose their minds when we say this, as anything. Because what do we always say about Michael Jordan and his teammates? We called them the supporting cast. It was never the big two.
It was Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Right. It was never the big three.
He was Gladys Knight.
Michael Jordan played with one Hall of Famer in Scottie Pippen and later on another Hall of Famer in Dennis Rodman. But it was never the big three. With the Heat, it's always been the big three. Well, last night, Dwayne Wade looked like he was older than you. Chris Bosh was non-existent on the floor.
You mean experienced?
Last night, experience, yeah. Last night, it was not the big three. It was LeBron James and the supporting cast.
And the Pips.
It was LeBron James dragging. He made a reference to it. I thought it was telling after the game. He said at halftime, I knew I had to be the Cleveland me. I'm paraphrasing him here, but referring to the fact that in Cleveland, they had a bunch of these teammates who couldn't play. Now, he got help last night. Udonis Haslem, their center, went 8 for 9 from the field. Ray Allen hits a big shot to extend the lead to 9 in the fourth quarter. But it was LeBron James taking his teammates, whether it be because of injury, age, or just not being that good, and dragged them to within a game of the finals. I don't know if he can do that 5 more times. But he did last night.
Not against San Antonio. I think
San Antonio. I picked Miami to win before the season. I picked him to win before the playoffs. But after watching the Spurs, I can't pick against that team because of the deficiencies I think that have been exposed in the Heat by the Indiana Pacers and by the age and the injuries.
Yeah. Well, Mo, any other issues?
I have many, but
laid upon the table for your thoughtful consideration.
Turtle Man, bottom of the hour.
Turtle Man in 15 minutes.
Okay.
My favorite show is Call of the Wild Man. When he went after that ostrich, and he goes after some of those raccoons, it drives me. I love that stuff. When he goes into those mucky ponds in Kentucky, where I was born, where I was raised, where I keep all my yesterdays, where I grew up and I got mad, came to blows with my old men, so I came back to settle down, so where they're going to put me in the ground. This is my town, Kentucky. When he goes into a pond in Kentucky in green pond scum and comes up with a 24-inch wide snapping turtle, barehanded, now that's a man's man and a woman's man. In fact, the women of Kentucky love the Turtle Man.
Do they?
Women love the smells, believe me.
Really? They love the smells?
Of the pond. They love that stuff. See, you don't run around with the same women I run around with.
Clearly I don't. I think I'm okay with that. Yeah,
you're okay with that?
Yeah,
all right, Mo, thank you very much for your thoughtful considerations.
Yeah.
You'll be listening in 10 minutes.
Oh, of course.
For the Turtle Man.
Is he coming here?